In this lesson, we're going to be talking about IDS Evasion. IDS is an intrusion detection system, and it's there to detect exactly the types of activities that we are engaged in. Sometimes you may be called in to work on a target where your activities aren't known and shouldn't be known by the operations people involved in monitoring and managing the network. The idea being, not only do they want to assess the technical controls that are in place, but they also want to assess operational procedures and ensure that systems and processes are working the way they are supposed to be working. When you are engaged with a target that you are in full cooperation with, you don't need to do these types of evasion tactics and techniques. But if you're asked to perform an assessment or a penetration on a target where they are not supposed to see your activities, then you need to know some different techniques to evade detection from an IDS. So we're going to talk about a couple of different things that you can do. So one thing that you can do is you can manipulate packets to look a particular way, and we've certainly looked at PackEth in the past. We're going to look at it quickly again because it's really useful as a tool to set up packets to look a particular way. One thing it can do is allow you to spoof IP addresses. So I could set a source IP address here that was something completely different from mine. Now, if I'm using TCP or UDP, I'm not going to see the response back, and in the case of TCP, I'm not even going to get the three-way connection made because the responses are going to go back to the source IP. But what you can do is, in addition to spoofing, you can set up particular ways that a packet may look by changing the type of service or by changing fragmentation offsets or different flag settings that may allow you through an IDS without maybe getting flagged. It might also allow you through a firewall. It's a slim possibility, but it is a possibility. Now, another thing that you can do is use PackEth to generate a lot of really bogus data. And what you might then do is hide in the noise generated by PackEth. So you could create some really bogus packets that are sure to set off IDS alarms, and then you can run some legitimate scans underneath and hopefully be able to get some responses back without being detected. So if we were to look at Nmap, I'm just going to look at the manual pages here. One of the things that I can do is set the throttle, in other words, the timing template, to go really slow. So if I do a -T0 with an Nmap scan, it's going to go really, really slow. If it goes really, really slow, there's a possibility it may not rise to the threshold that would trigger an IDS. And this is what we would call low and slow. Now, of course, this is only Nmap, and that would be a port scan. There's still a lot of other work that you would have to do, and you may have to find other ways to get around that. You can see also here on this page, there's some firewall IDS evasion and spoofing, and you can do things like fragment packets, where really fragmented packets sometimes will avoid IDS because an IDS is going to take a look at what's in front of it, and it may not have the ability to actually gather the entire packet and put it back together to take a look at what's going on. So sometimes fragmented packets can get through. You can also add decoys into a scan, and again, this is kind of doing the undercover friendly fire sort of approach, where Nmap will throw a bunch of decoys into the mix of the scan that you're doing, and hopefully you'll get lost amongst the decoys that are going on. I can also spoof the source address and do some other things around data lengths and TTL They can also spoof MAC addresses and send packets with bogus checksums. So all of those have the possibility of getting around firewalls and IDSs and doing evasion. One of the downsides of using some of these techniques, and particularly the timing technique that we talked about a bit ago, is that you run the risk of really slowing down your work, which of course is a side effect of this type of approach where you have to hide yourself and your activities. But the thing to keep in mind is if you've got a limited time frame in order to perform these sorts of activities, you really want to keep that in mind and be aware of how long some of these techniques are going to take. So also under the line of friendly fire, you could do the spoof technique with a throttle of 5 and just throw a lot of really bogus traffic at your target while you're also running a separate Nmap scan with legitimate information. And again, hopefully you can get through underneath that friendly fire that's causing a lot of noise. Similarly, there is a tool called Nikto, and Nikto does web application testing. And you can see that it has some abilities as well. There are some IDS evasion techniques. So if you're doing web application testing and you need to do IDS evasion, what you can also do is throw a Nikto scan out and do it from another system. And again, you may be able to hide underneath the noise from the Nikto scan while you're doing some other techniques. Hopefully you can use enough of these sorts of tactics to hide yourself well enough to be able to get what you need to from your target without being detected by the target and the operations people there.